This is Christopher John Björkness. It is June 20th, 2023. Good evening, everyone. Thank those of you who are joining into the live stream. I'd also like to thank all those who have contributed and made this live stream possible. If you'd like to contribute, there are contribution links in the description below and on my website, CJBBooks.com. I have produced a number of videos discussing the ancient plan to eliminate all non-Israelites. The Old Testament also persecutes and oppresses and commits genocide against the Israelites themselves and plans for horrible things to happen to the Israelite people. And the Israelites always rejected their God, Yahweh, for this very reason. The Old Testament contains a series of curses and threats, and it also contains numerous commandments. And many of those commandments are commandments to commit mass murder and genocide against the people of Canaan, against the Edomites, against the Amalekites, and ultimately against all of non-Israelite humanity. But that's only part of it. The other aspect of it is that Yahweh tries his chosen people in the furnace of affliction. They seem to think that it is an honor to be chosen, but sometimes it's better not to be chosen. And there's a great obsession throughout the Old Testament with oppression and mass murder, both inflicting it and enduring it. And the Old Testament states that mankind was subject to this treatment from the very beginning. Adam and Eve were immediately cursed to death, and they were oppressed by being expelled from the Garden of Eden and forced to till barren soil all their days. And Eve was cursed with childbirth as opposed to immortality. And the premise being that the gods were afraid of human beings. So they had to limit human beings, limit their lifespan, limit their ability to ever challenge the gods, and prevent human beings from obtaining that knowledge which would enable human beings to challenge the gods. Yahweh chose his people in a furnace of affliction. He plans to exterminate 2/3 of them, which it was claimed happened to European Jewry during the Holocaust. This furnace of affliction is a supposed eugenics program that weeds out the wicked and preserves the righteous. The wicked are defined as those who do not study the Torah, do not obey Yahweh, engage in assimilation with other people, worship foreign gods, abandon Yahweh, and disobey Yahweh's commandments to kill off other peoples. He got very angry with Saul when Saul didn't kill off the Amalekites. So it goes both ways, and it's difficult to fathom why the Israelites have followed this religion. The Old Testament itself said that they were forever trying to escape it and get rid of the cacodemon Yahweh, get him out of their lives. So I'm going to go through the biblical passages which evince what I've been just discussing, and it's really quite shocking to me. This also transfers into Christianity and Islam in a lot of ways, but today I'm going to focus most heavily on the damage this has done to the Israelites themselves, because I want to give them a heads up as well that they are in grave danger, that they have endured persecutions from their leaders for thousands of years based upon these mythologies, which now most people descended from the Israelites have disavowed and disbelieve in. And I want them to know why these things have happened and what is planned for them in the future, so that they have a heads up to join with the rest of humanity in opposing these plans and saving all of us from this complete insanity. I'm going to start off with this concept that the Zionists had dwelled on, especially the Zionists in the period from the 1890s through World War II. They had this concept that oppression is a stimulus. Einstein was an ardent Zionist, and he said exactly that. Jakob Klotzkin talked about the idea that Moses brought the Israelites into oppression and that strengthened the Israelites. And this is found in the book of Exodus, chapter 1, verses 8 through 14. Now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. Joseph had very good relations with the Pharaoh, and in fact came to rule Egypt and the Egyptian empire from behind the throne, according to this mythology. But in Moses' time, they were supposedly oppressed. It's all a fiction. It's not true, but it's a fiction that's meant to teach these lessons. That oppression is a stimulus, that the Israelite people are tried in a furnace of affliction. They are compared to the process of refining metals to bring out silver and gold. You have to get rid of the dross. You have to eliminate the iron and the bronze and the tin and the brass. So it is a process of dehumanizing specific groups of humanity. This is within the Israelite tribe, including the mixed multitude, but more broadly, all of humanity is segregated in this text into Israelites and non-Israelites. And then among the Israelites, there are the wicked and the righteous. And 2/3 are supposedly wicked who have to be purged. They do not obey Yahweh. They do not worship Yahweh. They take on foreign wives and foreign gods. They assimilate. They don't want to kill off all the rest of humanity, etc. Now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, Behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply. And it come to pass that, when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies, and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. This has been a recurring theme between Israelites and non-Israelites, in that the Israelites have always been and always attempted to form a state within a state, and sometimes to gin up revolution and gin up wars against the states which oppress them. A good example would be Jacob Schiff attacking the Tsar of Russia because he maintained the Pale of Settlement and was accused of oppression and pogroms. So Jacob Schiff pitted Jewish people within the Russian Empire against the emperor. They initiated strikes. Schiff cut off funds from the Russian Empire in the international money markets, helped to finance the war of the Japanese against the Russians, financed all the enemies of Russia all the way through World War I, and ensured that the Tsar would be overthrown. So this has been a long-standing plan. The planners were aware of how others would react to their plans, so they were informing their people of how to respond to it, and they were informing their people that this would actually be beneficial to them. Therefore, they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens, and they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew, and they were grieved because of the children of Israel. So the lesson is that this furnace of affliction is beneficial to the Israelites and makes them stronger in a eugenics kind of way. And it weeds out the wicked, the disloyal, and those who do not study the Torah. The rabbis often discuss their idea that the Holocaust occurred because masses of European Jewry failed to study the Torah and obey Yahweh. And they believed it was part of this cleansing in the furnace of affliction to get rid of the wicked. Another aspect of all this is the Pythagorean Platonic Hindu concept of the transmigration of souls and the cleansing of souls through affliction in each progressive life, and the reincarnation of those souls in an improved state. And that is very much a part of Kabbalah and modern Judaism, and they believe that it is good that they are oppressed and that some of them are passed through the fires of affliction because it strengthens and improves their soul for the world to come. And the Egyptians made the children of Israel to serve with rigor, and they made their lives bitter with hard bondage, in mortar and in brick, and in all manner of service in the field. All their service wherein they made them serve was with rigor. So they are encouraging the idea that the Israelites endure oppression, rigorous oppression, and that this is a good thing. And again, I'm going to prove that this concept of refining them by trial in fire as if they were metals, this all comes from Zoroastrianism, and we'll get into that in a minute. Deuteronomy chapter 7 verse 6 portrays being chosen as a very good thing. For thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy God. The Lord thy God hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself, above all people that are upon the face of the earth. But this is contingent upon obedience to Yahweh's commandments, and Yahweh's primary commandments is for the Israelites to exterminate all other peoples. Know therefore that the Lord thy God, he is God, the faithful God, which keepeth covenant and mercy with them that love him, and keep his commandments to 1,000 generations. And he repayeth them that hate them to their face, to destroy them. He will not be slack to him that hateth him. He will repay him to his face. And that's a curse on the Israelite peoples, that thou shalt therefore keep the commandments and the statutes and the judgments which I command thee this day to do them. And those commandments are primarily to exterminate all other people, initially the 7 nations of Canaan, then the Amalekites, the Edomites, and ultimately everyone else. Thou shalt be blessed above all people, and thou shalt consume all the people which the Lord thy God shall deliver thee. Thine eye shall have no pity upon them, and Yahweh has no pity upon the Israelites either. And the Lord thy God will put out those nations before thee little by little and little. Thou mayest not consume them at once, lest the beasts of the field increase upon thee. But the Lord thy God shall deliver them unto thee, and shall destroy them with a mighty destruction, until they be destroyed. And he shall deliver their kings into thine hand, and thou shalt destroy their name from under heaven. There shall no man be able to stand before thee until thou have destroyed them. So it's vicious not only to non-Israelites, but also to Israelites, in the name of creating a world free of non-Israelites, for them to eventually rule over in complete peace and harmony. And this chapter 20 talks about this complete destruction of other people, showing no mercy to them. But of the cities of these people which the Lord thy God doth give thee for an inheritance, thou shalt leave nothing alive that breatheth, but thou shalt utterly destroy them, namely the Hittites and the Amorites, the Canaanites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, as the Lord thy God hath commanded thee, that they teach you not to do after all their abominations which they have done unto their gods, so should ye sin against the Lord. Now Isaiah gets into this idea that the Israelites have to be tried in a furnace of affliction, that they are like the metals of the earth. And in order to distill the metals and remove their alloy, they have to be put through fire. And Daniel talks about this fire and how those who are righteous are not affected by it, but the wicked are consumed and turned to ash. Isaiah chapter 1, verse 25, I will turn my hand against you, and I will smelt away your dross as with lye, and remove all your alloy. That means getting rid of the base metals. So this is the dehumanization of Israelites who are deemed wicked because they don't obey Yahweh, don't study the Torah, assimilate with other people, love other peoples, and love other gods. Isaiah chapter 48, verses 9 through 10. For my name's sake will I defer mine anger, and for my praise will I refrain for thee, that I cut thee not off. That means completely exterminate them. Behold, I have refined thee, but not with silver. I have chosen thee in a furnace of affliction. And that little passage has caused the Israelites irreparable harm time and time, over and over and over again, under a leadership who believes that they are entitled to exterminate all those who worship other gods or assimilate with other peoples, just as the way that Moses sicked his soldiers on those who worship the golden calf. Ecclesiasticus chapter 2, verse 5, for gold is tried in the fire, and acceptable men in the furnace of adversity. And they take the furnace quite literally. Second Esdras, chapter 16, verse 73. Then shall they be known who are my chosen, and they shall be tried as gold in the fire. And there is this metaphysical principle that Yahweh will destroy 2/3 of the Israelites. And this is expressed in Zechariah chapter 13, verses 8 to 9. And it shall come to pass that in all the land, saith the Lord, 2 parts therein shall be cut off and die, but the third shall be left therein. And I will bring the third part through the fire, and will refine them as silver is refined. And I will try them as gold is tried. They shall call on my name, and I will hear them. I will say, it is my people. They shall say, the Lord is my God. So Yahweh cuts off the wicked branches and stamps out the wicked roots and prunes the tree. And this was discussed in Romans 9 to 11, chapters 9 through 11 by Paul. This idea that there will be entire branches of the Israelites who will be pruned off because they are wicked and have failed this test. They have not succeeded in the trial by fire. There are branches of Kabbalah which say that their souls will be rectified through this process of the transmigration of their soul through reincarnation, and that eventually they will be prepared for the world to come. Ezekiel chapter 5, verse 12 says, a third part of thee shall die with a pestilence, and with famine shall they be consumed in the midst of thee, and a third part shall fall by the sword round about thee, and I will scatter a third part into all the winds, and I will draw out a sword after them. American presidents and the Holocaust Encyclopedia have frequently discussed the idea that by 1945, most Europeans, 2 out of every 3, had been killed. Is that simply coincidental, or was someone trying to link that to the passages in Zechariah and Ezekiel? And we have to wonder, since this process is not yet complete, are they going to again try to eliminate 2/3 of Israelites? And I think that they certainly are going to try, and I want to help prevent it, and I want to alert good people around the earth to this danger. We can stop it, we can prevent it, and we can do it by uniting instead of destroying one another. And it is vitally important that all people become aware of these facts, and these are demonstrated facts. So this idea that humanity will be subjected to this fire pit of molten metal, which will eliminate the base metals, meaning the wicked and the non-Israelites, and purify out the silver and gold, meaning the righteous Israelites who will inherit the world to come, all derives from Zoroastrianism. In Zoroastrianism, they have this concept of the Savior, who is the Messiah, son of David, and Messiah, son of Joseph in Judaism, and the concept that all the metals in the earth will become molten rivers, and that humanity will be tried in this mass of molten metal. And I and others believe that this is the basis for this Jewish mythology, which condemns all of humanity to this torment of the wicked being purged, as defined by Yahweh, as those who don't worship him and are not of the blood of the Israelites, and of the Israelites themselves having to endure the loss of 2/3 of their people in fulfillment of this plan, artificial fulfillment of this plan, I might add. This is from the article Eschatology in the Encyclopedia Iranica. It was published in hardcover form in several volumes. I believe this is from volume 8. Universal Eschatology. There are several characters who figure as universal saviors in the Younger Avesta and in the Pahlavi writings. That concept was combined with the idea of the Pharaoh as the messenger and agent of the gods and as a demigod, and all of that through synchronicity in the syncretic blending of these religions in Judaism became the concept of the Messiah. The major event of universal eschatology is the resurrection of the dead, affected by Saoshyant, the future beneficent being, with the help of several assistants. The dead rise in hierarchical order, first the heroes of the past, and at their head the first man, Gayomart, and sometimes afterwards Zoroaster and King Wishtespa. The whole process lasts 57 years. The souls are reunited to the bodies, and a great assembly of humanity of all epochs is brought about, where kinspeople meet and recognize each other. Those living in that age do not die, but move over to the new world and gradually feel no need for nourishment of any kind. The righteous are then separated from the sinners. The exact same or very similar eschatology appears in Judaism. There is the dead bones prophecy of Ezekiel 37. Kabbalah talks about the idea that all Israelites who are buried outside of the Jerusalem area, their bones will crawl through the earth and find their way back to Israel and be given new flesh, and that all the wicked will be purged from existence and only the righteous will exist. And those righteous, in the highly developed modern Kabbalah, will be 600,000 immortal androgynes derived from the DNA of Messiah, son of Joseph. Just as Adam had 600,000 souls, was the well of souls, was the world soul, was the guff that produced Israelite humanity. After this interval of separation comes the next phase of eschatology. The metals within the earth will melt, and a river of molten metal will cover the earth. All humanity will have to go through this fluid, which acts as another phase of mechanical judgment. The righteous feel the liquid metal like a bath of warm water, while the wicked suffer from the scorching heat. This incident in the drama of the universal eschatology serves the double purpose of reward and punishment, as well as that of purification of the wicked from their evil. All unite in praising Or Mazd, and the Savior will present a sacrifice in company with his assistants and prepare the Haoma drink for all humanity, there endowing them with immortality. That becomes in Judaism the consumption of the wine that has been stored in vats from the beginning of time. That will be the subject of my next live stream. And a lot of these elements are going to appear in the biblical passages, which I'm going to read now. The authors of the Old Testament and all of these mythologies which talk about this refinement through the molten metal and the furnace of affliction and the trial were exposed to these Zoroastrian ideas because the Achaemenid Empire ruled over both Judea and perhaps even more importantly over Alexandria, Egypt, where the authors of the Septuagint and the great intellectuals of Jewry lived. There was a much more active and highly educated group of Judeans in Alexandria, Egypt, much more so than in Jerusalem. Jerusalem were comparatively a weaker population intellectually than those in Alexandria. They were also not nearly as wealthy, not nearly as well educated or as cosmopolitan. And it was in Alexandria, Egypt, where all of these religions came together: the Egyptian, the Greek, the Roman, the Chaldean, and the Zoroastrian. So we see this Persian conception of trial through metals appears a couple times in Jeremiah, Isaiah, and throughout the Old Testament. Jeremiah chapter 6, verses 27 to 30. Let me check the chat, make sure everything is going well. Just getting rid of troublemakers who want to change the subject. Anybody who talks about that garbage is immediately, permanently blocked. Jeremiah 6, 27 to 30. I have made you a tester of metals, and my people the ore, that you may observe and test their ways. They are hardened rebels, going about to slander. They are bronze and iron, in other words, base metals. They all act corruptly. The bellows blow fiercely to burn away the lead with fire, but the refining goes on in vain. The wicked are not purged out. They are called rejected silver, because the Lord has rejected them. So this is dehumanizing people simply for disbelieving in this obvious nonsense. Jeremiah chapter 9, verses 7 to 9. Therefore, this is what the Lord Almighty says. See, I will refine and test them, for what else can I do because of the sin of my people? Their tongue is a deadly arrow, it speaks deceitfully. With their mouths they all speak cordially to their neighbors, but in their hearts they set traps for them. Should I not punish them for this, declares the Lord? Should I not avenge myself on such a nation as this? So all Israelite people are condemned to constantly be thrown into the fire to see whether they're wicked or they're righteous. And this is every bit as bad as the worst of medieval Christianity, when they tried to determine if a witch was a witch by burning her, and if she burned, it proved that she was a witch, and if she had been righteous, God would have saved her. Psalm chapter 12, verse 6. The words of the Lord are pure words, as silver tried in a furnace of earth, purified 7 times. That 7 comes up a lot. Psalm 66, verses 10 through 12. For thou, O God, hast proved us. Thou hast tried us, as silver is tried. Thou broughtest us into the net. Thou laidst affliction upon our loins. Thou hast caused men to ride over our heads. That doesn't sound good. Why do they worship this garbage that condemns they themselves and condemns them to try to destroy everyone else on earth? It's really sick stuff, and it's been going on for 2,300 years, and it threatens all of humanity with imminent extermination. Thou hast caused men to ride over our heads. We went through fire and through water, but thou broughtest us out into a wealthy place. Oh, that's why they want to be brought out into the wealthy place. So this is where that medieval concept was born, that they're going to throw human beings into the fire, and if they're really good people, they're righteous people who deserve to live because Yahweh has graced them, that fire won't do them harm. And this is described in Daniel chapter 3, where King Nebuchadnezzar made a big statue of gold, 60 cubits high and 6 cubits wide, and he demanded that everyone worship it. But the Jews, of course, would refuse to worship it because they believed that if they worshiped it, Yahweh would do to them what he promised to do to everyone else, and that is exterminate them. So whoever does not fall down and worship will immediately be thrown into a blazing furnace. And who is it that Yahweh says gets thrown into the furnace of affliction? It is the Israelites, and 2/3 of them will fail to pass the test. But in this story in Daniel chapter 3, verse 8, at this time some astrologers came forward and denounced the Jews. They said to King Nebuchadnezzar, "May the king live forever. Your majesty has issued a decree that everyone here who hears the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music must fall down and worship the image of gold, and that whoever does not fall down and worship will be thrown into a burning furnace." It's an image of gold because gold represents the sun, and the Jews worship the moon, which is silver. But there are some Jews whom you have set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who pay no attention to you, your majesty. They neither serve your gods nor worship the image of gold you have set up. Furious with rage, Nebuchadnezzar summoned Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So these men were brought before the king. And Nebuchadnezzar said to them, Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the image of gold I have set up? Now when you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music, if you are ready to fall down and worship the image I made, very good. But if you do not worship it, you will be thrown immediately into a blazing furnace. Then what God will be able to rescue you from my hand? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to him, King Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will deliver us from your majesty's hands. But even if he does not, we want you to know, your majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up. They have just passed the test, so the fires of the furnace of affliction will not afflict them. Then Nebuchadnezzar was furious with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and his attitude toward them changed. He ordered the furnace heated 7 times, there's that 7 times, hotter than usual, and commanded some of the strongest soldiers in his army to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the blazing furnace. So these men, wearing their robes, trousers, turbans, and other clothes, were bound and thrown into the blazing furnace. The king's command was so urgent and the furnace so hot that the flames of the fire killed the soldiers who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these 3 men, firmly tied, fell into the blazing furnace. Then King Nebuchadnezzar leaped to his feet in amazement and asked his advisors, Weren't there 3 men that we tied up and threw into the fire? They replied, Certainly, your majesty. He said, Look, I see 4 men walking around in the fire, unbound and unharmed, and the 4th looks like a son of the gods. This is all very believable, right? Just like witches, if they're innocent, being able to dance around in the fire and being unaffected by it. And this is how the Israelites treat their own people. It's horrific. Nebuchadnezzar then approached the opening of the blazing furnace and shouted, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out, come here. And Christians and Muslims treat their own people the same way. The Abrahamic faiths generate this psychosis in human beings. It's unintelligible to me because I was never subjected to it. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out of the fire, and the satraps, prefects, governors, and royal advisors crowded around them. They saw that the fire had not harmed their bodies, nor was a hair of their heads singed. Their robes were not scorched, and there was no smell of fire on them. Then Nebuchadnezzar said, Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and rescued his servants. They trusted in him and defied the king's command, and were willing to give up their lives rather than serve or worship any god except their own God. Therefore, I decree that the people of any nation or language who say anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be cut into pieces, and their houses be turned into piles of rubble, for no other God can save in this way. It's all just horror and murder. And Abraham sold the world to this God Yahweh and was willing to murder his own son Isaac as a human sacrifice to this God Yahweh. Psalm 70, chapter 78, verses 35 to 41 talks about there's the fact is that throughout the Old Testament, the Israelites are accused of rejecting Yahweh because he is such a horrible God and because he is always cursing the Israelites, demanding that they exterminate all other people, demanding that they obey his ridiculous laws and go where he tells them to go, and in their travails suffer horribly for those travails. And this is reflected in some of the verses I'm going to read to you. They remembered that their God was their rock, that God Most High was their Redeemer. But then they would flatter him with their mouths, lying to them with their tongues. This is a constant theme in Judaism, that Yahweh is a cacodemon who has to be appeased with praise and mock worship, or else he will exterminate the Israelites. And by feeding Yahweh sacrifices, and by praising him and studying the Torah and obeying his commandments, they are instead able to sick Yahweh on the rest of humanity and thereby prevent him from attacking and exterminating the Israelites. Their hearts were not loyal to him. They were not faithful to his covenant. They plan to eventually exterminate him. They say the old Torah is already obsolete. It's been replaced by the oral Torah. In the world to come, there will be no Yahweh and there will be no written Torah. Yet he was merciful. He forgave their iniquities. He did not destroy them. Time after time, he restrained his anger and did not stir up his full wrath. He remembered that they were not but flesh, a passing breeze that does not return. Isn't that a great way to describe his creation? How often they rebelled against him in the wilderness and grieved him in the wasteland. Again and again, they put God to the test. They vexed the Holy One of Israel. And again, this war on humanity began with Adam and Eve, who were cursed to death and expelled from the garden. Deuteronomy chapter 8. Verses 9 through 12. If you ever forget the Lord your God and follow other gods and worship and bow down to them, I testify against you today that you will surely be destroyed. He's a cacodemon. He offers worship or death. Like the nations the Lord destroyed before you, so will you be destroyed for not obeying the Lord. So the threat is, the promise is that Yahweh is going to help the Israelites to kill off the rest of humanity, and they will inherit the world to come, which they will own completely and exclusively by themselves. Alternatively, if they disobey Yahweh, he will do to them what he has pledged to do to the non-Israelites, and that is exterminate them. Numbers chapter 33, verses 50 to 56 states exactly that. On the plains of Moab, by the Jordan across from Jericho, the Lord said to Moses, speak to the Israelites and say to them, when you cross the Jordan into Canaan, drive out all the inhabitants of the land before you, destroy all their carved images and their cast idols, and demolish all their high places. Take possession of the land and settle in it, for I have given you the land to possess. In other words, they can steal the land, as has happened to the Palestinians, and they're commanded to exterminate all these people. And if they fail to exterminate them, Yahweh is going to exterminate the Israelites. Distribute the land by lot according to your clans. To a larger group, give a larger inheritance, and to a smaller group, a smaller one. Whatever falls to them by lot will be theirs, distributed according to your ancestral tribes. But if you do not drive out the inhabitants of the land, those you allow to remain will become barbs in your eyes and thorns in your sides. That was one of the favorite passages for Rabbi Kahana, the genocidal Zionist. They will give you trouble in the land where you live, and then I will do to you, meaning the Israelites, what I plan to do to them, meaning the non-Israelites. So it's either comply with this plan to exterminate all non-Israelite humanity, or the Israelites themselves will be exterminated. Neither outcome is good, and we can prevent it by becoming aware of these facts and stopping those who want to fulfill these plans. Rabbi Wassermann was subjected to the Holocaust. And this article talks about how the rabbis believed that by being passed through the fire, they were going to create the nation of Israel through their suffering. By being put through the furnace of affliction, it would produce the good of Jewry returning to the Torah, returning to Yahweh, and returning to Palestine in fulfillment of this 2,300-year-old plan. At the outbreak of World War II, he fled to Vilna, which is in Lithuania, and in June 1941, while on a visit to Kovno, was arrested by the Nazis together with 12 other rabbis and sent to his death. On their last journey, he encouraged his fellow victims to walk proudly and with head erect. Quote, "The fire which will consume our bodies will be the fire through which the people of Israel will arise to a new life," he assured him. Whether or not that actually happened, it is worth noting that they want you to believe it happened. And this relates to all of the passages which I have been reading. Ezekiel chapter 21, verses 31 to 32. "And I will pour out mine indignation upon thee. I will blow against thee in the fire of my wrath, and will deliver thee into the land of brutish men and skillful to destroy. Thou shalt be for fuel to the fire. Thy blood shall be in the midst of the land. Thou shalt be no more remembered, for I, the Lord, have spoken it." Good people, we are all in danger. This is a plan that is being artificially fulfilled. People are dying. Blood is being spilled. Human beings are being set on fire. None of this has to happen, and we are also guilty by negligence if we do nothing to put an end to this insanity. This is from the Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 3. "But the souls of the righteous are in the hand of God, and there shall no torment touch them. In the sight of the unwise they seem to die, and their departure is taken for misery, and their going from us to be utter destruction. But they are in peace. For though they be punished in the sight of men, yet is their hope full of immortality." And this is the way the rabbis look at all those who passed in the Holocaust. "And having been a little chastised, they shall be greatly rewarded, for God proved them and found them worthy for himself. As gold in the furnace hath he tried them, and received them as a burnt offering." Human beings as a burnt offering. It boggles the mind. Malachi chapter 3. "But who may abide the day of his coming, and who shall stand when he appeareth? For he is like a refiner's fire, and like fuller's soap. And he shall sit as a refiner and purifier of silver, and he shall purify the sons of Levi, and purge them as gold and silver, that they may offer unto the Lord an offering of righteousness. Ye are cursed with a curse, for ye have robbed me, even this whole nation." The Old Testament's a series of curses against Israelites and non-Israelites, and the Israelites are commanded to exterminate the non-Israelites or themselves be exterminated. "Then shall ye return and discern between the righteous and the wicked, between him that serveth God and him that serveth him not. There will be no wicked in the world to come. All the brass, iron, tin, zinc, copper will be purged, and only the silver will remain. Whoop. Oh, I'm still new to this. Come on, OBS. There we go. So I hope that I have proven with verifiable sources the fact that Yahweh has cursed the Israelites with this by choosing them to be tried in the furnace of affliction, to have the dross and the alloys separated from their pure silver and gold, and that they are all in danger of another genocidal extermination of 2/3 to purge out the wicked. This is an ancient plan. They have been very successful in their plans. Witness the fact that they have reclaimed Palestine at exactly the time they said they would. Witness the fact that both Christianity, the Leviathan, and Islam and Marxism, the Behemoth, are obeying them and fulfilling their commands to destroy one another. We're on the verge of a World War III between Leviathan and Behemoth. The armies are being set up. The weapons are being supplied. The rhetoric is being tossed around that we're all going to kill each other off. It's a mighty coincidental that all this is happening just as the 6,000 years supposedly have passed and the world to come is slated to arrive. I don't believe at all that it's coincidental, and I think we ought to do something about it, and we need to organize politically in order to do something about it. So I'm going to go through now and look at the hyper chats or super chats, if you want to call them. And let me make sure I get everybody who contributed in. I want to thank you very much. It's extremely helpful. It will help to fund my next broadcast. Ali Abbas, thank you for joining again. It's good to see you. Could the purification of Jews be along ethnic lines like Ashkenazi, have to be sacrificed, and Sephardic survive? Another wonderful question, straight to the point. Yes, absolutely. The Ashkenazi are the ones who are considered the impure, the fakes, the converts, and they are slated to be the 2/3 that get annihilated. And that's one of the reasons why they have no hesitancy to destroy the Jews of New York and America. The 6 million Jews in America are in grave danger. I've been saying this for 20 years. They're going to try to gin up something like Nazism in America and imperil all of these people and imperil Americans, and then they're going to sick the communists on America the way that they did on the German people, and their plan is to destroy all of us together. And I hope that I can convey that message and get many of these very powerful, very wealthy people on board to trying to stop this plan. Thank you very much for the question, Ali Abbas. It was a great question. Primordial chaos. Can you explain a bit more about the Sephardic-Ashkenazi divide? Kabbalah, as we know it, comes out of the Sephardim. Are Ashkenazi rabbis aware of this plan against them? Also, where do the Mizrahi play in this end times plot? Wonderful questions. It depends on who you believe. The Sephardic claim to be the pure Judeans, as do the Mizrahi of Egypt and the Middle East. There are those who say the Sephardim instead derive from Berber converts in North Africa, who are generally attractive Caucasian people, not Semitic people. It's The DNA evidence has been played with. It's been very politicized. There have been articles purged from scientific journals which dispute the dogma that they want to push. The current dogma is that the Ashkenazi derived from a couple Jewish men and 4 Gentile European females. I talk about this a lot in the 3rd volume of my Satanic Secrets of Jesus Christ series. The Ashkenazi have traditionally viewed themselves as descending from the Khazar converts. This was pushed by Rabbi Judah HaLevi. And they say now that there's genetic evidence against that. I think we should always pursue the science, but we can't pursue the science when things are so heavily politicized. Traditionally, the Sephardic and Ashkenazim refused to intermarry. They had separate synagogues. They had separate graveyards. The Sephardic were generally considered wealthier, better educated, and were heavily involved in Kabbalah. The Kabbalists waged war against the rabbinical class. The Ashkenazi always had a very strong rabbinical class, clung very tightly to the Talmud. The Sephardic branched off into Kabbalah, as you say, but many of the Sephardic Kabbalists were actually mixed, half Sephardic, half Ashkenazi. There has been an ongoing conflict. The Sephardic view themselves as the royalty. Each side has its own Messiah, potential Messiahs, the Mizrahi, the Sephardic, and the Ashkenazi. There may be a struggle about that. The Sephardic are most closely related with the Dern May, and the Dern May are involved with Shabbatai Tzvi. They are slated to be the winners in this struggle. The descendant soul of Shabbatai Tzvi will become the Messiah, son of David, and he may very well ensure that all the Ashkenazi of Russia and America are wiped out, and that only the supposed Oriental, Middle Eastern, Sephardic Jews remain. And I suspect that's the plan. Thank you very much for those wonderful questions. Again, the next live stream I'm planning to do will be on this wedding banquet where the ancient wine that was stored will be consumed. And I have a lot of passages linking it through the whole Old Testament, through the apocryphal books, and through the oral traditions of the Midrash, Talmud, and Kabbalah. Thank you all very much for joining me, and please contribute. There are contribution links on my website, and there will be in the description below as well. I'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.